Have you ever woken up one day and realized that the person you once called Dad had made a choice that didn't include you, a choice that stripped you of the security you once had, the love you once knew, and the family you thought would always be there? For me, that moment came when I was just 14. My father, the man who used to take me fishing on weekends, who cheered me on at every baseball game, who told me bedtime stories when I couldn't sleep, decided that I wasn't enough. My mother wasn't enough. The life we built together wasn't enough. He left, and he didn't just leave. He chose someone else, a stranger, a woman who stepped into his life and somehow became more important than his own family. He packed his bags, walked out the front door, and never looked back. No explanations, no apologies, just a cold, heartless goodbye. For years, my mother and I struggled. We scraped by, barely making ends meet, while he built a new life with her. A better life, at least that's what he made it seem. Fancy vacations, a new house, a new wife, and eventually new kids. It was like we never existed. And then, just when I thought I had finally moved on, he reappeared. Not as the proud, successful man he once was, but as a broken, desperate shell of himself. His mistress? Gone. His money? Vanished. His perfect new life? Shattered. Now, after all these years, he's standing in front of me, homeless, broke, begging for help. So, tell me, what would you do? Would you forgive a father who walked away without a second thought? Or would you let him suffer the consequences of his choices? Because today, I need advice. I need to know if I'm making the right decision. Let's dive in. Growing up, my dad was my world. He wasn't just my father. He was my hero. The man who held my hand as I took my first steps. The man who taught me how to ride a bike. Who showed up at every baseball game. Who sat beside me during thunderstorms because he knew they scared me. He promised me, time and time again, that he would always be there. But promises don't mean much when they're broken so easily. At first, I didn't see the signs. I was just a kid, naive and trusting. My mom noticed first. How could she not? The way he came home later and later, the way he sat at the dinner table in silence, his eyes glued to his phone instead of listening to me ramble on about my day. Birthdays started to slip his mind. He forgot my 13th birthday completely. No call, no text, no gift. I spent the entire day waiting for something. Anything, but all I got was disappointment. My mom tried to cover for him, pretending he was just busy, but I saw the pain in her eyes. She knew. And then one night he simply left. I remember it so clearly. The way he stood by the door, suitcase in hand, eyes avoiding mine. My mom was crying, begging him to reconsider, but he was already gone. His heart belonged to someone else. I was 14 years old when my father abandoned me. For what? Some woman he barely knew? A woman he thought was more important than the son he helped bring into this world? I still remember his words before he walked out that door. I need to be happy, son. You'll understand when you're older. 15 years later, I still don't understand. At first, he pretended I didn't exist. It was as if I had been erased from his life. No phone calls, no birthday cards, no Christmas presents. He built a new family, one that didn't include me. A new wife, a new house, a new life filled with vacations, expensive cars, and a happiness he never seemed to have with us. I would have given anything for a single moment of acknowledgement, but all I got was silence. My mother did her best, but life wasn't easy. Money was tight, and without my father's support, we struggled. While he was off taking luxury vacations with his new family, my mom was working 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. And me? I had to grow up fast. At 16, I got my first job bagging groceries at the local supermarket. By 18, I was working 2 jobs while juggling school just to help my mom with rent. While my father was spoiling his new wife with diamonds, my mother and I were deciding whether to pay the electric bill or buy groceries for the week. The resentment festered, growing deeper with every passing year. By the time I was in college, I had stopped wondering if he would ever come back. I had stopped hoping. He was nothing more than a ghost, a distant memory of a man who once called himself my father. I had made peace with the fact that I would never see him again, or so I thought. Then, one night, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, and for a moment, I considered ignoring it. but something told me to pick up. "Hey, son." My heart stopped. I hadn't heard that voice in over a decade. A voice that was once filled with confidence, now weak and broken. It was him, my father. At first, I thought maybe he was calling to apologize, to finally take responsibility for the years he had lost, for the pain he had caused. But I was wrong. He wasn't calling to make amends. He wasn't calling because he missed me. He was calling because he needed something. Apparently, life hadn't turned out the way he expected. His perfect life with his mistress? Gone. The woman he left us for had drained his bank accounts, taken everything, and left him with nothing. No house, no money, no car, nothing. And now, after all these years, he had nowhere to go. So what did he do? He called me, the son he abandoned. The same son who had to work 2 jobs as a teenager just to survive. And he had the audacity to ask for my help. I could hear the desperation in his voice. He told me he had been living on the streets for the past few weeks, bouncing from shelter to shelter. He had no one left, no friends, no family, no one except me. I could feel my hands shaking as I gripped the phone. Where was he when I needed him? Where was he when my mother was working 16-hour shifts just to put food on the table? Where was he when I had to sleep in a freezing apartment because we couldn't afford the heating bill? Where was he when I was struggling to survive while he was off playing house with his new wife and kids? And now, after all these years, he expected me to save him? A part of me wanted to scream at him. I wanted to unleash every ounce of anger I had been holding in for the past 15 years. But another part of me hesitated. He was my father, the same man who used to hold me when I was scared, the same man who once told me he loved me more than anything in the world. Could I really turn my back on him the way he turned his back on me? I was torn, and that's why I need your help. What would you do? Would you forgive a father who abandoned you? Would you help him, knowing that he never once helped you? Or would you walk away, letting him suffer the consequences of his choices? I don't know what the right answer is, but I need to decide, and soon. Tell me in the comments. I need to know. What would you do if you were in my shoes? After sharing my story, I wasn't sure what to expect. Would people tell me to be the bigger person? Would they tell me to forgive him, despite everything? Or would they see things the way I do? That some actions are simply unforgivable? But you guys didn't hold back. Your responses poured in, filled with raw emotion, personal experiences, and some brutally honest advice. Some of you believed in second chances. Others? Not so much. Let's take a look at some of the top comments from you all. Speech Balloon at TruthSeeker92. Actions have consequences. Your father made his choice when he walked out that door. He didn't just leave, he abandoned you. He chose another family over you. And now that it's all fallen apart, he wants to come crawling back? You owe him nothing. If he was a decent man, he would have checked in over the years, at least try to be a part of your life. But he didn't. Now he has to live with that. That comment hit me hard. I've spent years wondering if I was being too cold, too harsh. But at TruthSeeker92 is right. My father chose this path. He wasn't forced into it. He wasn't manipulated. He made a conscious decision to cut me out of his life. Why should I be the one to pick up the pieces now? Speech Balloon at Second Chances for All, I totally get why you're angry. You have every right to be. But holding on to that anger forever isn't going to help you. I'm not saying let him move in or trust him again, but maybe help him find a shelter? Give him some food? Sometimes, people don't realize their mistakes until it's too late. Maybe this is his wake-up call. This one made me pause, because as much as I hate to admit it, I'm not a heartless person. I don't want to see anyone suffer, not even the man who abandoned me. But can I separate my resentment from basic human decency? Would helping him, even in the smallest way, somehow make me weak? Speech Balloon at StayStrong88. Where was he when you needed help? Where was he when you were struggling to survive? He wasn't there. And now, he's only reaching out because he has no one else. If he still had money, if his wife hadn't left him, he wouldn't even be thinking about you. You deserve peace, and that means not letting toxic people back into your life. Even if they're family, stay strong. That comment sent chills down my spine. Because deep down, I know it's true. If he still had his cushy life, his new wife, his big house, would he have called me? No. He's not here because he loves me. He's here because he's desperate. Reading through your comments made me realize something. I've spent years questioning whether I was wrong to hold on to this anger. I've wondered if I was being too stubborn, too unforgiving. But the truth is, I don't owe him anything. He wasn't there for me. Not when I was a scared 14-year-old kid, crying myself to sleep, wondering why my own father didn't want me. Not when my mom was struggling, when we were barely making ends meet. Not when I needed a father to show up, even if just for a single phone call. And now, after all these years, he expects me to be the one who shows up for him? I don't know if I can do that. But part of me wonders, if I don't help him now, will I regret it later? What if years from now I look back and wish I had at least tried? What if this is my only chance to get closure? I'm still torn. So tell me, what would you do? Would you walk away? Or would you offer a second chance? Because right now, I honestly don't know what the right answer is. After reading your comments, I knew what I had to do. For 15 years, my father had been nothing more than a painful memory, a ghost from my past, someone I had forced myself to forget. But now he was sitting in a rundown cafe across from me, looking like a man who had lost everything. Because he had. I won't lie, I was nervous. My hands trembled slightly as I walked through the door, the smell of burnt coffee and stale bread filling the air. My heart pounded in my chest, my stomach twisted into knots. And then I saw him. At first, I barely recognized him. The man who had once stood tall, confident, untouchable, now looked like a shell of himself. His once pressed suits, the ones he used to wear so proudly, had been replaced by a tattered jacket and faded jeans. His hair, once perfectly styled, was now unkempt, streaked with gray. The man who had once walked out on me and my mom without a second thought now sat hunched over the table, his hands shaking as he stirred a cup of coffee that looked like it had gone cold hours ago. I almost turned around and left, but I didn't, because I needed answers. He looked up the second I sat down. His eyes, once filled with confidence, maybe even arrogance, were now hollow, tired. "Son," his voice cracked as he said the word. It felt strange, hearing him call me that after all these years. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence between us was thick, suffocating. And then, just like that, he broke down. Right there, in the middle of that cafe, my father, the man who had abandoned me, without a second thought, cried. He didn't even try to hold it in. Tears streamed down his face as he reached for my hand. But I pulled away, my body stiffening at the gesture. "I'm so sorry," he choked out. "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I failed you. But please, just hear me out." I sat back in my chair, arms crossed over my chest. "Go ahead," I said, my voice colder than I intended. And so, he told me everything. The woman he left us for, the one who had been worth more to him than his own wife and son, she had taken everything. At first, life had been perfect, or at least that's what he thought. She was younger, beautiful, exciting. She made him feel alive again. And so, he gave her everything. His money, his trust, his heart. And then one day, she disappeared. She drained his bank accounts, sold his house, left him with nothing but the clothes on his back and a stack of unpaid debts. Now he was broke, homeless, alone, and the only person he had left to turn to was me. The same son he had walked away from without a second glance. The irony of it all almost made me laugh. "So what? You expect me to just forgive you?" My voice was sharp, years of anger bubbling to the surface. He shook his head quickly. "No, I don't expect that. I didn't know where else to go." I scoffed. "And you think that's my problem?" His face crumbled. "No," he whispered. "It's not. But I'm still your father. And I cut him off. "No, you were my father once, a long time ago. But fathers don't abandon their children. Fathers don't walk out and never look back." His eyes dropped to the table. "I know," he murmured. "I know I don't deserve your help. But please, son, just tell me what to do. I have nowhere else to go." I exhaled sharply, running a hand through my hair. For years, I had imagined this moment, dreamed about it. Even, I had pictured myself standing over him, stronger, while he was finally the one who needed me. And yet, now that I was here, I didn't feel victorious. I just felt tired. I took a deep breath. I'm not giving you money, I said, my voice firm. I'm not letting you move in with me. But I'll give you one thing, a chance to prove that you actually want to change. He lifted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. What do you mean? There's a shelter downtown, I told him. It's run by a friend of mine. I could take you there, help you get in, but that's it. If you really want to fix your life, you're going to have to do it yourself. I could see the hesitation in his eyes. He wanted more. He wanted me to open my arms, to give him a second chance, to save him. But I wasn't that kid anymore. I wasn't going to beg for his love. So, what's it going to be? I asked. For a long moment, he didn't answer. And then he nodded. Okay, he whispered. Okay, I'll go. As we left the cafe, I felt numb. Had I done the right thing? Should I have been harsher? Or was this enough? Because deep down, I knew the truth. This wasn't over yet. And part of me couldn't shake the feeling that my father wasn't really looking for redemption. He was just looking for a way out. After everything that happened, I was left with one question that kept haunting me. Did I do the right thing? I didn't give my father money. I didn't let him into my home. I only offered him a chance, a real chance, to rebuild his life by going to the shelter. But the doubt lingered. Had I been too harsh? Too cold? Should I have done more, despite everything he put me through? I turned to you guys again, and once again, you didn't hold back. Speech balloon at Real Talk Rachel. You made the right call. If he truly regrets what he did, he needs to prove it through actions, not words. Asking for help is one thing. But expecting you to just take him in after abandoning you? That's manipulative. He has to rebuild, and it's not your job to fix his life for him. This comment hit me hard because it put everything into perspective. For years, I had wished for an apology, for some kind of closure. But now that I had it, I realized that words mean nothing without action. And that's what I needed to see from him. Would he actually do the work to fix his life? Or was this just another attempt to take the easy way out? Speech balloon at no second chances. Honestly, I wouldn't have even met with him. He wasn't there for you when you needed him. So why should you be there for him now? Actions have consequences. You gave him more than he deserved. If he truly wants redemption, he'll figure it out on his own. A part of me agreed with this. Why had I even given him anything? After years of silence, why was it my responsibility to pick up the pieces of his broken life? I had spent so much time questioning myself, questioning whether I was being cruel, heartless, unforgiving. But was it really about revenge? Or was it just about self-respect? Some of you suggested I should keep my distance but check in from time to time to see if he was actually trying to change. Others said I should cut him off completely, walk away, and never look back. I still didn't know what the right answer was. But one thing was clear. This wasn't over yet. Because soon I was about to find out exactly what kind of man my father really was. I met him one last time. After everything, the years of absence, the abandonment, the excuses, I still gave him a chance. One chance to prove that he wasn't just looking for a way out, that he actually wanted to rebuild his life. I didn't give him money. I didn't let him move in. Instead, I directed him to a shelter, one that could provide him with food, a place to sleep, and resources to get back on his feet. It was a lifeline. It wasn't much, but it was something. And guess what? He didn't take it. A week later, my phone rang again. I knew it was him before I even looked at the screen. A part of me debated not answering, letting it go to voicemail, pretending like I hadn't seen it. But curiosity, or maybe some lingering hope, made me pick up. Did you think that was enough? His voice was different this time. There was no desperation, no regret, only anger. You gave me a number to some shelter, like that was supposed to fix everything. You're my son. You're supposed to help me. I felt my entire body tense. Supposed to help him? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I already gave you more than you ever gave me, I said, my voice eerily calm. I gave you a chance. You didn't take it. His laugh was bitter. A chance? You call that a chance? You could have helped me for real. You could have let me stay with you, given me some money to get back on my feet. But no, you're too selfish for that. Aren't you? Selfish. That word hit me harder than I expected, because for so long I had felt guilty. I had questioned whether I was being too cold, too unforgiving. I had wondered if I was making a mistake by not doing more. But now, hearing him say it, I realized something. He never wanted to change. He never wanted to rebuild his life. He just wanted a safety net. He wanted me to be his backup plan. You don't get to say that to me, I said, my voice shaking. You don't get to call me selfish after everything you did. You weren't there when I needed you. Not once. And now, just because you're struggling, I'm supposed to drop everything and save you? That's not how this works. I'm still your father, he spat. I almost laughed. No, I said firmly. You stopped being my father the day you walked out that door. There was a long silence. I could hear him breathing on the other end. Could picture the way his face must have twisted in frustration. So, that's it, he finally asked. Yeah, I said. That's it. And then I hung up. That was the last time I ever spoke to him. I blocked his number after that. I didn't want to risk him calling again. Didn't want to hear another excuse. Another attempt at manipulating me into feeling guilty for his mistakes. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something I hadn't expected. Peace. I had spent so many years carrying the weight of his absence, the anger, the resentment. I had spent nights lying awake, wondering what I would say to him if I ever saw him again, wondering if I would ever get closure. And now I had it, not because he apologized, not because he made things right, but because I let go. Walking away from him wasn't easy. No matter what he had done, he was still my father. There was a part of me, the small, wounded kid I used to be, that had wanted so desperately for him to be different, to finally be the dad I had needed all those years ago. But I had to accept the truth. He was never going to be that person. And that's okay, because I didn't need him anymore. I had built my life without him. I had survived without his help, without his love, without his presence. I had won, not by getting revenge, not by watching him suffer, but by choosing myself, by realizing that I was enough, even if he had never thought so. So, to everyone who followed this story, who left comments, who shared their own experiences, thank you. Some of you told me to forgive. Some of you told me to walk away. And in the end, I did what was right for me. Because family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up. And sometimes the hardest thing in life isn't holding on to anger. It's learning when to finally let go. What would you have done? Would you have helped him, given him another chance? Or would you have walked away like I did? Let me know in the comments. And if you've ever been in a situation like this, if you've ever had to choose between your past and your future, I want to hear your story. Because if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. We are not defined by the people who leave us behind. We are defined by the people we choose to become. This story isn't just about me. It's about the choices we make, the moments in life where we have to decide who we want to be and what we're willing to accept. For years, I thought that forgiving my father meant letting him back into my life, giving him a second chance, allowing him to take up space in my world again. But I've realized something much deeper. Forgiveness isn't about them. It's about us. It's about letting go of the anger, the resentment, the pain that we carry so we can finally move forward. It doesn't mean forgetting, and it certainly doesn't mean inviting someone back and who has proven they don't deserve a place in your life. It simply means choosing peace over bitterness. I didn't walk away because I wanted revenge. I walked away because I deserve better. So, what's the biggest lesson I've learned? Family isn't about blood. It's about who's really there for you. I spent years hoping my father would come back, that he would somehow realize what he had lost and make things right. But that's not how life works. Some people don't change. Some people only return when they have no other options. Not because they want to make amends, but because they want something from you. And that's a painful truth to accept. But accepting it means taking back your power. It means recognizing that your worth isn't defined by the people who leave. It's defined by the people who stay. Sometimes the hardest lesson in life is knowing when to walk away. We grow up being told to respect family, to always take care of the people who raised us. But what happens when those same people turn their backs on us? What happens when they make choices that hurt us, abandon us, and only come back when it benefits them? At some point, we have to choose ourselves. And sometimes people need to face the consequences of their own actions. My father made his decision years ago when he left me behind. And I made mine when I decided I wouldn't let his past choices dictate my future. For the first time in my life, I feel free. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think? Did I make the right decision? Would you have done the same? Drop a comment below. I read every single one of them. And if you've ever had to make a tough decision like this, if you've ever had to walk away from someone who was supposed to love you, share your story. Let's support each other, because at the end of the day, we're not alone in this. If you love stories like this, real-life dramas, tough moral dilemmas, and deep life lessons, don't forget to subscribe to AGS Stories. We dive into the stories that make us think, make us feel, and sometimes even change our perspective. So hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. I'll see you in the next one.